Welcome to today's podcast. Today I'm going to speak about Yemen and what's happening over there. As we know with COVID-19, the whole world has been struggling and suffering with lives being lost and people losing their jobs, which has resulted in shortages in food, water, clothes, etc. Now, if we talk about Yemen, they have been in a major crisis for a number of years, for a long time, and the COVID-19 crisis has just made that worse. 74% of Yemen needs humanitarian aid. So that's almost three quarters of their population that needs aid, and they aren't receiving it right now. So sooner or later, almost a quarter of their population will be dead. 57% of their population has no access to water. Water is a basic human right which everyone should have, and without it, it's difficult to live, and sooner or later, the body will start to feel the effects of not having water, and slowly, they will die. So that's over half the population that doesn't have access to water. 60% of the population of Yemen doesn't know where the next meal is coming from. So over half of their population is struggling to eat, or they are starving as they have nothing to eat. As we know, there's only a certain number of days you can go without food, and then the body starts to shut down, and sooner or later it can't function and we end up dying. 10% of women and children are malnourished, and as we know, children, they need their food and vitamins when they're young so they can develop their body, and that's a vital stage of their development. And if they're not getting the food, then they are going to die. 27% of the population is at risk of getting major diseases because of the circumstances of where they're living, their conditions, their lack of food and water, being homeless, and that would be a problem in any climate of getting diseases like COVID-19. But the fact that it's in Yemen, where they are homeless, where they don't have food or water, that makes it worse. And with their hospitals being non-existent, it's getting harder and harder, and we need to do something to make sure they have the support they need to overcome this. Over half the population, 53%, don't have access to health services. So with all the problems they are going through, they can't access health services, hospitals, medicine, care. So it's hard enough with the struggles they are facing and the disease they are getting, but with no help there to help them recover, it's just a death sentence. So sooner or later, they will die. Having said all of this, bear in mind, this has been happening since before the COVID-19 crisis. So it's just been getting worse now, and it's been trending now, but we should have been speaking about it long before now, and we shouldn't stop speaking about it once the trend goes away. We need to continue speaking, raising awareness, doing charity, helping them. We don't need to shy away. We spoke for other causes. I won't name them, but we've spoken about other causes. We've come together, we've protested, we've given to charity, we've written to our MPs. But when it comes to Yemen and literally their whole population dying, we don't want to speak. Why is that? Now, it's predicted by 2023, 80% of the Yemeni population will be dead. And as children and women are more at risk of dying, then where we will lose 80% of the population, and the 20% that are left will won't be women and children, as they're more risk to dying. So where's the next generation gonna be? Sooner or later, there won't be any Yemen. The people who are surviving now, they won't be able to continue the generations to come. Will just Yemen will be forgotten, and for such a huge and great nation that's excelled in many areas, such as education, and having institutes which have supplied esteemed scholars and other scholars in other fields, we're not gonna have any more being sent to us. Also, the fact that other Muslim nations have been ha- have a role in destroying them shows that the lack of unity, and we need to pull together and put a stop to this and rebuild Yemen as soon as possible. Furthermore, the Muslim countries that don't have a role to play in this but are silent are just as guilty, and they need to speak up, because if we don't unite, then we're gonna fall apart, and that's exactly what's happening in Yemen. And I'm just a person that's deciding to speak but with no influence. We need people with influence to speak, to make the voices heard, to make sure that the right people that are making the decisions such as MPs and figures that are involved in foreign policy, etc., are speaking about it and aware of it. So we need people to get people with influence to speak. This shows us that a country can be in war, in famine, in drought, in terrible conditions, and the world will go silent, and they'll only start speaking when it's trending, or even worse, once Yemen has been wiped out, then you'll say we should have spoken, we should have talked, we should have raised awareness, but then it's gonna be too late. So do something now while you can, and raise awareness, give to charity, contact your MPs, contact anyone that has an influence to try and do something, rather than wait till later when it's going to be difficult. It's already difficult, but later on it's going to be near impossible. So try and speak now where you can actually do something about it. If you think about your country, whichever country you come from, or even if you're born here, if almost 80% of the population of your country was going, would you be silent? So we shouldn't be silent now. We need to we need to put our efforts where it matters. We were able to pull together for other causes, so we need to pull together now. Protest in a safe manner, listening to guidelines, raise money, speak about it, question why certain things are being happening and are being allowed to happen, which has directly or indirectly led to this. Question why certain people are able to do this and get away with this without any questioning. Question why human right human rights and UN rules are being broken without anyone being questioned, which has resulted in hundreds of thousands of lives all over the world being lost. And coming back to Yemen, this has led to thousands of lives being lost, with millions more predicted to be lost in the coming years. Why is this being allowed to happen? So just to end on this note, I'd say I hope you found what I said useful. I hope you can think about it, open up your mind, and decide what you want to do. Reflect on what you've done for other causes, and think about what you can do for this cause. And I'll see you next time for my next podcast. Thank you for listening.